This afternoon, BBC Two presents the award-winning film of Lerner and Lowe's musical Gigi at 3:10.
Easter Monday on BBC1, and the Easter Bunny is unmasked.
The hare has always been a creature of myth and mystery. It's an animal whose natural history and mythology are intertwined.
It'll all end in tears, but who will do the crying?
I see.
In the dangerous world of stock car racing, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman are on collision course.
You shouldn't be driving a car anywhere, not on a road, not on a racetrack, and not in a parking lot. You are selfish, you're crazy, and you're scared.
We'll be on air right from breakfast time.
All through the day.
Till, bedtime at least.
So better get used to our ugly mugs, because you're going to see a lot of us.
Oh, speak for yourself.
And as they say, to follow that, Paul McCartney takes a long haul down memory lane in conversation and in concert. Myths and magic, movies and music, all for Easter Monday on BBC1.
This is BBC One in the South East.
Good afternoon from Newsroom South East. Police are investigating the deaths of 7 drug users in the King's Cross area of London. It's believed they may have been supplied with heroin, which was twice the normal strength.
The bodies were all found during a police sweep of the area. 4 were discovered in streets near King's Cross, 3 of them in hotels, 1 at a private address. The other 3 were found within a mile of the station. The 7 were all drug users and all died within 9 days of each other. It's not known how they died and tests are being carried out. The deaths happened despite a major police crackdown, Operation Wellin, on drug dealing in the area. So far, 130 people have been arrested. Although drug dealing is no longer a common sight around here, these deaths indicate the extent of the problem.
Police are hunting a man who killed a shopkeeper at Luton in Bedfordshire after trying to buy cigarettes with a forged £20 note. 24-year-old Mohammed Yaqub was knifed after challenging the man last night at the shop in Selborne Road. A rally is being held this lunchtime in Trafalgar Square to mark the first anniversary of the war in Bosnia. The organisers say their aim is to help bring an end to the fighting.
Peace campaigners have been gathering in Trafalgar Square on the day when a no-fly zone comes into force in Bosnia. But despite greater United Nations involvement, the fighting goes on, and many of the people at today's rallies have friends and family who are trapped in the horror of civil war.
My relatives lived scattered throughout Bosnia, and most of them lived in now Serbian-controlled territories. They have been ethnically cleansed. They haven't established any contact with me. I'm the only one living in the West, living abroad, so I fear for their safety.
The message from the UK Friends of Bosnia is that there are no winners in this war. Their aim is to restore trust between the rival communities who used to live happily side by side.
Some of London's top football clubs have been criticised by the Labour Party for charging too much for tickets. Arsenal, Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur are among those accusing of penalised younger fans. They charge £10 for the cheapest seats for junior non-members, and on big match days prices go up to around £20. Nigel Griffiths, Labour's Consumer Affairs spokesman, is calling for an inquiry. That's it. Now let's take a look at the local weather with Suzanne Charlton.
Hello. Well, the showers have burst into activity within about the last hour over the region, and there are plenty more to come through this afternoon. Some sunny skies between them, but some hefty showers about, maybe even the odd rumble of thunder and some hail mixed in with them. Temperatures around about the same as they are at the moment. Tonight, most of those showers will die away, but we could see a few still down near the south coast, inland turning misty and murky, with some fairly dense patches of fog by the end of the night. Now, that should clear away tomorrow, some bright skies, and then, again, the showers burst to life.
This is BBC One.
There's been more trouble in South Africa despite appeals for calm after the murder of the black leader Chris Hani. Police and journalists have been fired on at a protest rally near Johannesburg. And after the murder of a Briton in New Orleans, travel agents say tourists must be streetwise. Good afternoon. There's been more violence in South Africa's townships in the continuing wave of protest over the murder of the black leader Chris Hani. In the latest incident, shots were fired at police and journalists at Katlehong, east of Johannesburg. and a white man injured in an attack in Luandel Township outside Cape Town has now died. 2 others were burned to death in their car. From Johannesburg, John Harrison.
In flames, not just the lorry in the township of Katlehong, but the ANC's hopes for a peaceful long weekend of protests following Chris Hani's assassination. Angry mobs took to the streets, torching vehicles and daring the security forces to take them on. Eventually, the demonstrators, some of them heavily armed with spears, axes and pistols, began to converge on a stadium to register their protest at Hani's killing. We approached the stadium in convoy, 3 cars driven by a Reuters photographer, a CBS TV crew and ourselves. Suddenly, as we turned the corner, 3 shots rang out. 1 bullet hit the CBS car as we fled the area.
Well, certainly it'll make life difficult. I mean, our job is to work in the townships, and usually journalists in this country have been fairly safe, but it's becoming increasingly dangerous now. And we'll just have to see what the future brings, but certainly it's not fun anymore.
These townships are already classified unrest areas. Since Chris Hani's assassination, they've become virtually no-go areas for whites, as we've discovered here in Katlehong. And this is just the beginning of a week of mass demonstrations. Suddenly, outside the stadium, more shots. Police officers took cover as demonstrators threatened to torch them and a petrol station they were protecting. Security reinforcements arrived at the beginning of what's bound to be a long day in Katlehong. Near Cape Town, meanwhile, 3 white men have died, torched to death as they tried to buy drink from a township beer hall last night. 2 men died instantly, the 3rd in hospital early this morning. What cannot help, as security reinforcements are sent into known flashpoints, is the revelation by South Africa's Police Commissioner, General van der Merwe, that the man accused of killing Chris Hani, 40-year-old Janos Valus, had a hit list that included other political leaders, reinforcing the ANC's suspicion that Hani's death was part of a wider conspiracy designed to foment violence in the townships and to derail negotiations for political reform. John Harrison, BBC News, Johannesburg.
The fiancé of the British tourist murdered in New Orleans has returned to Scotland. Margaret Rees, who's 1 month pregnant, said her boyfriend, Adrian Strasser, had no idea he was going into a dangerous area of the city when he went for an after-dinner walk. Police believe he was killed for his video camera.
It was in the French Quarter in New Orleans, a notoriously dangerous area, where Adrian Strasser met his killer. He was taking an after-dinner stroll. It was 12 hours before his body was discovered. He'd been hit on the head 3 times. Each blow caused a skull fracture. Mr. Strasser, a primary school teacher from Edinburgh, has been described by his family as a quiet man and not the type to get into trouble. He was in New Orleans with his fiancée, who is pregnant. Before flying home, she spoke of how she was coping.
Make every effort I can to make sure I keep calm and make sure at least, you know, something good comes from this. And, you know, we have a baby at least, if I don't have Adrian.
At Mr. Strasser's school, Towerbank Primary, in the Portobello area of Edinburgh, there's been shock at the news.
Mr. Strasser will be greatly missed at Towerbank. I think he hadn't been with us that long, but I mean, he was a well-liked teacher, both by pupils, staff and parents.
Meanwhile, the Association of British Travel Agents has issued this advice to people thinking of travelling to America.
Again, it's a good idea to ask the porter in the hotel or the hotel reception staff, are there any places where they shouldn't go, where you should go, particularly in the evenings after dark.
Almost a year ago to the day, another Briton, Julie Stott from Manchester, was killed in New Orleans. She was shot by a robber high on drugs, again in the city's French Quarter.
A short time ago, NATO aircraft took off from bases in Italy to begin enforcing the United Nations air exclusion zone over Bosnia. More than 50 planes from France, the Netherlands and the United States will take part in the operation. They have orders to intercept any aircraft flying without permission and lead them out of Bosnian airspace.
For NATO, Operation Deny Flight is a historic mission. This is the alliance's first military deployment beyond the borders of its member states. Initially, nearly 60 American, French and Dutch fighters will take part. The aim of the alliance pilots is to stop any unauthorized flights in Bosnian airspace, only using force against intruders as a last resort after repeated warnings or in self-defense. The aim is to escort planes or helicopters out of Bosnian airspace or to make them land. The NATO aircraft cannot attack ground targets.
Fighters from several nations will man CAP stations, combat air patrol stations, over Bosnia-Herzegovina. This is truly different and truly historic for us.
NATO AWACS surveillance planes, including German crew members, will guide the interceptor jets to their targets, giving Germany its first combat role since the end of the Second World War. It's thought, though, the enforcement of the no-fly zone will have little effect on the fighting on the ground. Bosnian Serb leaders have indeed warned the operation could aggravate the situation. RAF Tornadoes are on standby to join the mission.
The National Union of Teachers is on the verge of rejecting the government's plan to assess the performance of individual teachers. And at their annual conference in Brighton this afternoon, the union's expected to vote for protest action, which could include strikes over performance-related pay and the government's latest pay offer.
NUT delegates have until now been united by the unanimous support for a boycott of next term's school tests. But this morning, aware of the Education Secretary's view that some here are more concerned with political rather than educational issues, there was disagreement over what action to take in protest over teachers' pay. Some on the left want teachers to unite with other public sector unions in strike action against the government's 1.5% pay limit.
We won't be alone. The firefighters will be meeting in May, and they are committed to break the 1.5% limit by taking action. Let's not leave the NUT on the sidelines. Let's join them.
Others called for protest action and a boycott against the government's pilot scheme for performance-related pay.
It represents division, it represents competition, it represents individualised pay systems, it represents half a step or three-quarters of a step towards performance-related pay. We're going to stop Patton on testing. Let's stop him on his divisive pay arrangements and cutthroat market forces as well.
But the leadership knows there's unlikely to be support for strikes or further boycotts from the wider membership in schools.
No person within this conference should vote for this particular amendment unless you can guarantee that within your school you get a positive vote. Within your association, you can get a positive result. Within your division, you can get a positive result.
But the conference was in a mood to support a boycott of teacher appraisal schemes, although a formal vote won't come until tomorrow. However, strikes over pay this year don't currently look likely.
More than 3,000 demonstrators are marching through Dundee this lunchtime in a show of support for sacked workers at the city's Timex electronics plant. The protest, organised by the Scottish TUC, follows scuffles between police and pickets outside the factory gates this morning, in which 3 people were arrested.
The Timex dispute is now in its 11th week, but this morning more than 1,000 demonstrators from all over Scotland and parts of England gathered at the factory gates to support sacked workers. As the buses carrying the alternative workforce approached the scene, they were escorted by police on foot and pickets were kept back. There were scuffles as a small group tried to breach police lines to try to obstruct the vehicles, and a number of people were led away.
It's got the imagination of working people because they see that if Timex can get away with drastically reducing wages and conditions, then other employers will jump on the bandwagon.
This afternoon, thousands also joined a march organised by the STUC, which has described the sackings back in February as a national disgrace. The route's expected to take them past the factory gates, but union leaders are hoping for a trouble-free protest.
The 4 women staging a sit-in underground at Parkside Colliery on Merseyside, including the wife of the NUM President Arthur Scargill, have come to the surface. A short time ago, the women left the pit shaft to join a rally to protest against the closure of the colliery. The Law Society says thousands of people will be prevented from taking their cases to court under new legal aid rules which come into force in England and Wales today. Fewer people will qualify for free legal aid, and many others will pay higher contributions. The government says the cuts are needed to curb the soaring costs of legal aid. Our legal correspondent, Joshua Rosenberg, reports.
Carol Morris works as a truck driver. She was injured when a heavy case fell on her. She got legal aid and won her claim for compensation. If she'd lost, it would have cost her £500. But under today's changes to legal aid, the bill might have been more than she could afford.
Now, in actual fact, it would be considerably larger. I think it would have been something like £2,500. So I would have thought twice about it now. Then it wasn't too bad.
Yesterday, a solicitor could do free legal aid work for anyone earning up to £3,000 a year after deductions for living expenses. Today, only people with spare income of no more than £2,300 can get free help with a court case.
There are going to be tens of thousands of people each month who are not going to get access to justice, who yesterday would have been able to do so. Battered women, people evicted from their homes, people who need the protection of the courts won't be able to get them. It's a tragic day.
But the Lord Chancellor says that the taxpayer shouldn't have to subsidise people who he believes can afford to pay something towards their legal aid.
I believe that it is right that where the taxpayer is being required to pay, and where indeed many taxpayers may have very comparable incomes to those in question, that the person should be prepared to put something towards the cost of his or her case, if that case is to go forward.
Next month, the High Court will be asked to decide whether the Lord Chancellor's new regulations are within the law.
And that's all for now. Our next news is at 6:10.
Good afternoon. Our satellite sequence shows that the great mass of cloud over the UK is sort of swirling away north and westwards, but you can see a lot of cloud beginning to push in from the southwest, and it's popping up as well across those areas that saw the best of the sunshine this morning. We've got a low pressure area close by, and that means we're going to get some showers this afternoon. In fact, already some showery rain around, but keep an eye on the radar down to the southwest, because you can see that there are more showers beginning to break out there, and they'll be arriving across much of England and Wales. Now, some of those showers are going to be heavy and thundery, some gusty winds, there could even be some hail and some thunder rumbling around. North of the Wash, though, I think it's going to stay rather cloudy, misty and drizzly, quite chilly there as well. And quite a bit of cloud over Northern Ireland and gradually edging across Scotland. But I think the far northeast of Scotland will find some clearer, colder weather arriving later on in the day. That'll be moving down from Orkney and Shetland. Now, here's the reason it'll feel chilly along that northeast coast. Once again, the wind's coming in off the cold North Sea, so not the best place to be during this afternoon. And those are the average wind speeds. Now, temperatures away from that northeast coast will get up into double figures, but they'll take quite a tumble when one of those heavy showers comes along. Tonight, frost's not really a major problem, apart from perhaps up in the far northeast of Scotland, and there could be a touch of frost on the ground in the Northern Isles as well. Further south, the showers will disappear this evening. They'll rumble on along the southern coast of England, I think, but inland, I think the problem here is going to be some mist and some fog, I think more than we saw last night. So do watch out if you're starting the trip back to work tomorrow morning. That fog should clear away and it'll be bright for a time, but once again the cloud will bubble up and we'll find some heavy showers developing. Our low pressure is still not so very far away, so some of those showers will turn out to be heavy and thundery. Quite a bit of cloud over Scotland and Northern Ireland, but most of the rain will have petered out, just a few spots left here and there. Rest of the sunshine probably in the far north of Scotland. Temperatures similar to today.
There's a partnership here.
We'll pool our resources instead of just using them to cancel each other out.
It's going to be a great success.
Where are you going to get the cash? I cost nothing.
You are incorrigible.
But there's more to life than business.
It's getting rather crowded. Perhaps we should move inside. You can remind me of the theatre.
Made a pass at me.
New arrivals spell trouble for Westbeach. Saturday at 9:15 on BBC1.
For the same price as a day's BBC, you can get 1/7 of a wash in a laundrette. The BBC. The best value television and radio there is.
Scorching round the racetrack of Donington Park on BBC Two now, there are highlights from yesterday's Formula One World Championship race, the Grand Prix of Europe. In 20 minutes here on BBC One, we're off to the shores of El Dorado, where emotions run high, as they do in that suburb of Melbourne.